The Galactic Council chamber buzzed with tension as representatives from 12 alien species gathered for an emergency session. The massive crystalline hall floated in the void between three suns, its walls shimmering with translated conversations in dozens of languages. Commander Vex of the blue skin Empire slammed his four-armed fist on the holographic table. The Red Swarm has taken the outer rim. 17 colonies destroyed in 3 cycles. We need the Alliance fleet mobilized now. The insectoid delegate from the Hive worlds clicked her mandibles nervously. Our forces are stretched thin. The Red Swarm's bioships adapt too quickly. They learn from every battle. Then we call upon the old trees, suggested Elder Kane from the Rock People. His stone-like features remained calm despite the crisis. There are warrior species we haven't contacted in generations. A ripple of uncomfortable silence spread through the chamber. Ambassador Rix, the floating jellyfish-like being who served as council mediator, pulsed with dim blue light. You speak of myths, Elder Kane. The warrior races are legends from the old wars. Not all of them, Kane replied slowly. The archives speak of a species called humans. They lived on the third planet of a yellow star, in the galaxy's spiral arm. But that was over 200 years ago. Most believe they destroyed themselves. Commander Vex laughed harshly. Humans, children's tales to frighten young soldiers. Beware the Deathworld warriors who feel no fear. Pure fiction. The Council's chief archivist, a tall gray being with large black eyes, activated the central display. Ancient images flickered to life, blurry recordings of bipedal creatures with strange fur only on their heads, wearing primitive armor and wielding crude weapons. The records are incomplete, the archivist admitted, but they describe beings who thrived on a Class 12 death world. Gravity twice the standard, poisonous atmosphere, extreme weather, and predators that would terrify a void hunter. Impossible, scoffed the Hive delegate. No species could evolve intelligence on such a world. The files mention something else, the archivist continued. They called it pack bonding, the ability to form emotional connections with other species. The records suggest humans could inspire loyalty in any being they encountered. Elder Kane's rocky face cracked into what might have been a smile. During the Void War, there are reports of human warriors leading mixed species units against impossible odds. They supposedly had a saying, "No one gets left behind." Ambassador Rix pulsed with skeptical orange light. Even if humans existed, their homeworld was marked as lost in the archives. Solar flare activity made their system uninhabitable 2 centuries ago. Perhaps, said Kane, but the old star maps show their species had begun spreading to nearby systems before the disaster. There might be survivors. The debate was interrupted by an urgent alarm. The chamber's defense grid detected approaching vessels, Red Swarm bioships, their organic hulls pulsing with hostile intent. How did they find the council station? Commander Vex demanded, his blue skin darkening with rage. The bioships opened fire, their living weapons tearing through the station's shields. The council members scrambled for escape pods as sections of the chamber began venting atmosphere into space. Through the chaos, Elder Kane made a decision. He activated an emergency beacon, an ancient distress signal that broadcast on frequencies not used for 200 years. If there are any human survivors out there, he whispered into the transmitter, "We need you now. The galaxy is dying, and legends say you are the warriors who never surrender." The message shot out across the void, racing toward the outer spiral arm, where a small yellow star burned quietly in the darkness. On the third planet of that system, now scarred but healing from ancient disasters, something stirred in the underground, cities where humanity had survived. The transmission was picked up by a listening post buried deep in the ruins of what was once called New York. A young technician named Jake stared at the alien message. his hands shaking as the translation software worked its magic. "Sir," he called to his commander, "you need to see this. Someone out there is asking for help. They ... They're asking for human warriors." Colonel Stone, a weathered veteran of the underground wars, studied the message. His scarred face broke into a grin that would have terrified any alien who saw it. "Well, I'll be damned," he muttered. "Looks like it's time to remind the galaxy what humans are capable of." Above them, hidden ships began powering up for the first time in 2 centuries, their crews preparing for humanity's return to the stars. Asterisk deep beneath the ruins of old Chicago, the emergency council session had been running for 6 hours. The underground chamber was filled with representatives from the scattered human settlements that had survived the great dying 2 centuries ago. Colonel Stone stood before the holographic display showing the alien distress signal. Around him sat the leaders of New Tokyo, underground London, Bunker City, and a dozen other survivor enclaves. "The translation is clear," Stone said, his voice echoing off the reinforced walls. "There's a galactic war happening, and someone thinks we're mythical warriors who can help." Dr. Lisa Park, the chief scientist from New Tokyo, adjusted her thick glasses. "The technology in this signal is incredible. Faster than light communication, quantum encryption. They're centuries ahead of us, but they're losing," observed General Torres from Bunker City. "You don't call on myths unless you're desperate." Stone nodded grimly. "The question is, are we ready? We've spent 200 years fighting mutant creatures and each other in these tunnels. Can we really face aliens in space?" An old man in the corner spoke up, Marcus Webb, keeper of the old archives. "My grandfather fought in the Void War before the dying. He used to tell stories about human Marines serving alongside alien allies. Said we were the only species crazy enough to charge enemy positions when outnumbered 10-1. Stories," muttered Captain Hayes from underground London. "We don't even have a proper space fleet anymore." Stone activated another display. "Actually, we do. The deep storage facility in Old Montana has been maintaining 3 exploration vessels. They were designed for generation ships, but we modified them for combat during the tunnel wars." The room fell silent. Everyone knew about the deep storage facility. It was where humanity had hidden its most advanced technology before the solar flares hit. "The ships are operational?" asked Dr. Park. "According to last month's report, yes. Basic FTL drives, kinetic weapons, and enough supplies for a long deployment. But here's the thing. We'd need volunteers. This isn't a rescue mission or a trading expedition. This is war." General Torres leaned forward. "What are we facing exactly?" Stone pulled up the translated portions of the alien message. "Something called the Red Swarm. Bioships that adapt to enemy tactics. They've conquered 17 star systems and are pushing toward the galactic core." "Bioships?" Dr. Park looked intrigued. "Living vessels? That's fascinating from a scientific standpoint. ... Less fascinating when they're shooting at you," Stone replied dryly. "But here's what caught my attention. The aliens mentioned our pack bonding ability. They think humans can inspire loyalty in other species." Marcus Webb chuckled. "Grandfather always said humans were the galaxy's favorite strays. We'd adopt anything that didn't try to eat us first." The debate continued for hours. Some argued humanity wasn't ready for galactic politics. Others worried about revealing their survival to potentially hostile aliens. But gradually, a consensus emerged. "We go," Stone announced finally. "Not as conquerors or diplomats, but as what we've always been, survivors who don't abandon our allies." 3 days later, the first human ships in 2 centuries launched from hidden bases across Earth. The fleet was small, just 3 vessels with 90 crew members total. But each ship carried humanity's most experienced fighters, soldiers who had survived the underground wars and knew how to fight impossible odds. Captain Mike Rodriguez commanded the lead ship, the Endurance. His crew was a mixture of tunnel fighters, engineers, and scientists, the best humanity had to offer. "Sir," called out Navigator Beth Kim, "we're receiving the alien distress beacon. Signal is coming from—" "Wow, it's really far out there." "How far is far?" Rodriguez asked. 47 light years, sir. Edge of what we used to call the local group." Rodriguez settled into his command chair. 2 centuries ago, his ancestors had looked up at the stars and dreamed of exploration. Then the solar flares came, and humanity had to learn to live in darkness. Now they were finally going home to space. All ships. "This is Endurance Actual," he broadcast to the small fleet. "We're about to find out if humans really are the galaxy's warriors. Remember, we're not just representing Earth. We're representing every human who died in the tunnels, everyone who survived the dying, and everyone who never gave up hope." The 3 ships engaged their FTL drives and vanished into hyperspace, carrying humanity toward a war that would determine the fate of the galaxy. Behind them, Earth continued its slow healing, while in the deep bunkers, the remaining humans watched and waited to see if their boldest warriors would return as heroes or legends. Asterisk. The human fleet dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of the Kepler system, where the alien distress beacon had originated. What they found was devastation on an unimaginable scale. "Jesus Christ," whispered Navigator Kim as the sensor data came in. "Captain, you need to see this." On the main screen, the remains of the Galactic Council station drifted in pieces. Massive chunks of crystalline hull tumbled slowly through space, while debris fields stretched for thousands of kilometers. Emergency lights still flickered on some sections, like dying stars in the void. Captain Rodriguez studied the wreckage grimly. "Life signs?" "Detecting multiple species in the escape pods," reported sensor operator Danny Chun. "Looks like 12 different biological signatures. And, sir, some of those pods have been drifting for 3 days. Their life support is failing." Rodriguez didn't hesitate. "All ships begin rescue operations immediately. Endurance will take the closest pod cluster. Unity and Defiance, spread out and grab as many survivors as you can." "Sir," interrupted Communications Officer Sarah Jones, "we're receiving a transmission." "It's alien." The bridge speakers crackled with an electronic voice speaking in precise, translated English. "Unknown vessels. Identify yourselves immediately. This system is under Galactic Council protection." Rodriguez nodded to Jones, who opened a channel. "This is Captain Rodriguez of the Earth vessel Endurance. We received your distress beacon and came to help. We're beginning rescue operations now." A long pause. Then, "Earth? That designation is not in our current database. What species are you?" "We're human." The silence that followed was so complete that Rodriguez wondered if the communication link had failed. Finally, a different voice came through, older, with a gravelly quality that the translator struggled to process. "Human? You actually exist?" "This is Elder Kane of the Stone Shapers. I sent that beacon, but I never believed ... We exist," Rodriguez confirmed. "And we're here to help. But first, we need to get your people to safety." The rescue operation took 4 hours. The human crews worked with military precision, pulling survivors from failing life pods and providing emergency medical care. Dr. Park, working aboard the Endurance's medical bay, found herself treating patients she'd only dreamed about, beings with silicon-based biology, gaseous entities that required specialized containments, and insectoids with complex hive-mind connections. But it was the emotional reactions that surprised the humans most. "The small blue ones keep crying when we help them," reported Medic Thompson. "Not from pain, from gratitude. I've never seen anything like it." Commander Vex of the Blueskin Empire was one of the first to recover enough to speak. When he learned that humans had rescued him, his 4 arms trembled with emotion. "You came," he whispered, staring at Rodriguez with wide silver eyes. "The myths were real. You actually came when we needed help." Elder Kane's story gradually emerged. The Red Swarm had tracked the Council station somehow and launched a devastating attack. Only quick thinking and emergency evacuation procedures had saved any lives at all. But why attack the Council station? Rodriguez asked during the emergency briefing. "It was neutral territory, because we were discussing you," Kane replied, his rock-like features showing deep concern. "The Red Swarm has been monitoring our communications. They learned we were trying to contact the legendary human warriors." The revelation sent chills through the human crew. They hadn't just answered a distress call. They'd walked into a trap specifically designed to eliminate them. "How many Red Swarm ships are we talking about?" asked Captain Haz from the Unity. "The attack force consisted of 47 biovessels," reported Ambassador Rix, the jellyfish-like being who served as council mediator. "Each one is roughly equivalent to 3 of our standard warships." Rodriguez felt his crew's confidence waver. 3 ships against 47 seemed like suicide. But then Dr. Park made a discovery that changed everything. "Captain," she called from the medical bay, "I've been analyzing the bioship weapon residue from the station wreckage. These Red Swarm creatures, they're not invaders." "What do you mean?" "They're running from something. The energy signatures suggest they're refugees, desperate, hungry refugees who've been forced to become predators to survive." Elder Kane's stone features shifted into what might have been surprise. "Refugees? But they've destroyed 17 systems ... double quotes, because they're starving," Park continued. "Their bioships need organic matter to survive, and they've been driven from their original feeding grounds by something even worse." Rodriguez stared at the data, his tactical mind racing. Humans had spent 2 centuries learning to survive in impossible conditions. They understood desperation. "We need to find out what's really hunting them," he said quietly. "Because if the Red Swarm is running scared, whatever's chasing them is going to be our real enemy." In the depths of space, something vast and ancient stirred, tracking the scent of the human fleet across the void. 3 days after the rescue, the combined human-alien fleet had established a temporary base in the asteroid field of the Kepler system. The humans had shared their food supplies and medical technology, while the aliens provided star charts and intelligence about Red Swarm movements. Captain Rodriguez stood in the makeshift command center aboard the Endurance, studying holographic displays with Elder Kane and Commander Vex. The mood was grim. "The Red Swarm hit 3 more systems while we've been here," Vex reported, his blue skin dark with frustration. "Colony ships, mining stations, research facilities. They're consuming everything in their path." "It's not consumption," Dr. Park interjected from her workstation. "I've been analyzing the bioship samples we recovered. These creatures are converting organic matter into some kind of ... armor. They're literally building themselves into stronger configurations." Elder Kane's rocky features showed confusion. "Armor against what?" "They're already the most powerful force in the galaxy." The answer came from an unexpected source. Navigator Kim had been monitoring long-range sensors when she detected something that made her blood run cold. "Captain, I'm picking up massive gravity distortions at the edge of the system. Something big is coming through hyperspace." Rodriguez moved to the sensor station, his experienced eye reading the data. "How big are we talking?" "Sir, it's larger than a moon." The bridge fell silent. Then, slowly, a shape began to materialize on the main screen. Something that shouldn't exist, couldn't exist, but was undeniably real. The vessel that emerged from hyperspace was a nightmare of geometric impossibility. It appeared to be constructed from dark metal that seemed to bend light around itself, creating an effect that hurt to look at directly. Spires and ridges covered its surface in patterns that suggested both ancient Intelligence and alien madness. By the Stone Fathers, whispered Elder Kane. What is that thing? Before anyone could answer, the communications array burst to life with a signal unlike anything they'd encountered. It wasn't translated speech, it was pure information, downloaded directly into their minds with painful clarity. The entity called itself the Harvester. It had been traveling between galaxies for millions of years, consuming entire civilizations to fuel its journey. The Red Swarm had once been a peaceful species in a distant galaxy, until the Harvester arrived and began systematically destroying their worlds. We ran. The Red Swarm leader communicated through the bioships. We fled across the void for centuries, but it followed. We became what we had to become to survive. Dr. Parks stared at the data streaming across her screens. The Red Swarm isn't evil. They're traumatized survivors, trying to build defenses against something that eats entire species. Rodriguez felt the weight of realization settling on his shoulders. Humanity hadn't come to fight a war. They'd walked into a cosmic horror story where the villains were just as much victims as everyone else. Can we communicate with this Harvester? He asked. Ambassador Rix pulsed with terrified purple light. Captain, you don't understand. This entity has consumed thousands of species across multiple galaxies. It doesn't negotiate. It simply takes what it needs. But humans, Rodriguez reflected, had survived 2 centuries on a dying world by doing things others thought impossible. Open a channel to the Harvester, he ordered. The bridge crew exchanged worried glances, but Jones complied. The response was immediate and overwhelming, a presence that pressed against their minds like a vast, cold intelligence examining insects. Curious, the Harvester's voice seemed to come from everywhere at once. Another species seeks to delay the inevitable. Your biological diversity will serve our purposes well. We're not here to delay anything, Rodriguez replied, fighting against the mental pressure. We're here to offer you something better. A pause that seemed to last forever. Explain. You consume civilizations to fuel your journey between galaxies. But you're destroying your own food source. Each species you eliminate is knowledge and biological potential lost forever. The Harvester's attention focused on him like a crushing weight. You propose what? Dr. Park stepped forward, her scientific mind racing. Sustainable harvesting. Instead of destroying entire species, take genetic samples, cultural data, willing volunteers. You get what you need, and the civilizations survive to grow and develop new resources. Interesting. But why would a young species such as yours care about the survival of others? Rodriguez smiled grimly, remembering every human who had died protecting strangers in the underground wars. Because that's what humans do. We don't abandon our pack. Elder Kane's translation circuits struggled with the concept, but the meaning came through clearly to every alien mind. No one gets left behind. The Harvester's massive vessel began to move closer, its impossible geometry casting shadows across the asteroid field. Demonstrate this claim. Humans, show you why your species deserves consideration. The fate of the galaxy now hung on humanity's ability to prove that cooperation was stronger than consumption. Asterisk. The final confrontation took place in the debris field where the council station had once stood. The Harvester's massive vessel loomed over the combined fleet, 3 human ships, 17 Red Swarm bio-vessels, and the surviving council rescue craft. It should have been laughably one dash-sided dot instead. Captain Rodriguez was about to attempt the most audacious negotiation in galactic history. All ships, maintain position, he broadcast. Remember, we're not here to fight. We're here to prove that there's a better way. The Harvester's mental voice pressed against every mind in the fleet. You have 1 solar rotation to demonstrate your claimed superiority. Failure will result in immediate consumption. Rodriguez turned to Dr. Park, who had spent the last 3 days working frantically with the alien survivors. "Are you ready?" "As ready as anyone can be for something this insane," she replied, activating her equipment. All the data is compiled, genetic diversity charts, cultural analysis, technological progression models. If this works, it'll change everything. The plan was simple in concept, terrifying in execution. Humans would prove their pack bonding ability by creating something the Harvester had never seen. A truly cooperative alliance between former enemies. Red Swarm vessels, Rodriguez called. Initiate the formation pattern we discussed. The bioships, still radiating fear and desperation, began to move into position around the human fleet. For the first time in centuries, they weren't preparing to consume organic matter. They were preparing to protect it. Elder Kane's voice crackled over the communications. Stone Shaper vessels moving to support positions. For the first time since the old wars, we fight beside humans again. Commander Vex added his own forces. Blue Skin Empire ships ready. We follow the human lead. One by one, every surviving species added their vessels to the formation. Insectoids, gaseous beings, crystalline entities, all united behind humanity's desperate. Gambit. The Harvester observed this with something approaching curiosity. Tactical formation detected. Yet your combined firepower remains insufficient to harm you. "We're not trying to harm you," Rodriguez replied. "We're trying to show you something better." Dr. Park began transmitting the data package she'd compiled. A detailed analysis of how species thrived when allowed to cooperate rather than simply survive. The information included Earth's own history, how humans had nearly destroyed themselves, then learned to work together during the Great Dying. "Look at what we accomplished," she said. Her voice carried across every ship in the fleet. 200 years ago, humanity was facing extinction. We could have turned on each other, consumed the weak to let the strong survive. Instead, we protected everyone. New Tokyo shared their water recycling technology with Bunker City. Underground London traded medical supplies for food. The rock dwellers opened their shelters to refugees. The data showed survival rates, technological advancement, population recovery, all the metrics that proved cooperation was more efficient than consumption. But the real demonstration was just beginning. "Red Swarm Leader," Rodriguez called, "I need you to trust us. Lower your bioship's defensive systems." The silence that followed was deafening. For centuries, the Red Swarm had survived by maintaining constant vigilance. Now a human was asking them to make themselves vulnerable. We cannot, the Red Swarm leader finally responded. "To lower defenses is to die. Not if your pack has your back," Rodriguez said quietly. Human fleet moved to full defensive posture around the Red Swarm vessels. The three small human ships positioned themselves between the massive bio-vessels and the Harvester, their weapons powered but not targeted. It was a gesture of pure protection, humanity literally putting itself in harm's way to defend former enemies. Elder Kane's rocky voice rumbled with emotion. "Stone Shaper fleet, take supporting positions. We guard the Guardians." The formation that emerged was unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. Former enemies protecting each other in perfect coordination, with humans at the center, serving as the connecting link between species that had never learned to trust. The Harvester's attention focused intensely on the display. Fascinating. The weak species protects the strong accepts protection from the weak. This configuration should not be stable, but it is, Dr. Park transmitted, because trust multiplies strength. Each species brings different capabilities, different perspectives, different solutions. When you consume a civilization, you lose all that potential forever. Show us the practical application. What followed was a demonstration of cooperative problem-solving that left the Harvester speechless. Working together, the combined fleet solved navigation problems, shared resources, and even began repairing the damaged Council station using techniques no single species could have managed alone. The humans weren't just warriors, they were catalysts, bringing out the best in every species they encountered. Unprecedented, the Harvester finally admitted. This cooperative model yields superior results to consumption. We require time to process these implications. The massive vessel began to withdraw, but its final message carried a note of something that might have been respect. Humans of Earth, your species will be remembered, perhaps emulated. As the Harvester disappeared into hyperspace, leaving the galaxy in peace, Captain Rodriguez looked around at his mixed-species fleet and smiled. Humanity had returned to the stars not as conquerors, but as the galaxy's protectors, proving that sometimes the greatest strength comes from refusing to leave anyone behind. The legend of human warriors had been real all along. They just fought for everyone's survival, not just their own. Asterisk.